विश्व में हमने युवाओं में IT MHC के माध्यम से रुतबा प्राप्त किया है। भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकते हैं, दुनिया में हम आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूँ, IT plus IT is equal to IT. Information technology plus Indian talent is equal to India tomorrow.
Hello and welcome once again in our 18th World Education Summit. We are having our next panel discussion on future of school education, reopening to the challenges and long-term impact of COVID-19. For this session, we are having a fellow panelist. The session is moderated by Lieutenant Colonel A. Sekhar, Education Director, RMPS International School, Ankleshwar. Welcome, sir. Welcome to this session. Dr. Lakshmi Kumar, Director, the Orchid School, Pune.
Hi.
Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sunita, Swaraj, Principal, the Heritage School, Vasantkunj, Delhi. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kanak, Gupta, Director, Seth, Jaipuria School. Welcome, sir. And
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Francis Joseph, CEO, Prism Education. Welcome, sir. And in middle of the session, Dr. Aishah Siddiqui, Director and Principal, Dubai National School, Dubai, will be joining in soon in 1 or 2 minutes. So before making any delay, I'll just hand it over the session to Colonel A. Sekhar to moderating the session. Over to you, Sekhar, sir.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. Namaste, namaskar, good afternoon, kushamdeen, salam alaikum to everyone, whoever is there. It's a pleasure to be here with old friends, some very distinguished educators, and to talk about a topic which has been so widely discussed: pre-pandemic, present pandemic, post-pandemic, schools reopening, and everything else which gets involved with it. So before I get going on to the questions or giving a one-sided monologue, let's now go around the table and ask ourselves, today is Mahashivratri, 11th of March, so approximately a year earlier. What was your mindset 25th of March 2020? Can I have answers in about a minute, in about a sentence, not a minute? So just to go around. Yes, those who are more familiar with me, I'll start with them. Dr. Lakshmi, what was your mindset in a sentence, 25th of March 2020?
Thank you, Colonel, for giving me this most familiar connect that we both have had over many years with World Education Summit and in other spaces. I remember 2020 March and addressing my team, and the emotions were swinging between hope or a desperate hope that this may be a matter of week or 10 days, 15 days, and definitely a very lurking sense of the complete unknown, and hence what is waiting for in front of us to unfold. So the mindset was about sailing on the two boats.
Yeah, okay. Sailing on two boats, a voyage into the unknown. Yes. So, in the interests of gender equality, I go to one of the male panelists, Francis Joseph. Did you think about Jesus Christ or Easter, or were you thinking about something which is coming up now? Francis Joseph.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Colonel. I mean, I was actually the first week of Dubai in first week of March. I actually came from Dubai, so you can think of what I went through in my mind because we participated in an exhibition. I met, I think, all the citizens of this world, right, from China to different citizens. So we came from that kind of spirit, right? And suddenly, when you hear this, right? And like Lakshmi rightly said, we all felt it was a matter of just 1 week, 2 weeks. And the school closures when those planning was happening, since I work a little bit closely with the government of Maharashtra, we had some conversations on how do we tackle for the next 2 weeks, what happens to the examinations, all those kind of stuff. So I think there was a lot of worry. No matter, we felt that in 2 weeks we have to just wear a mask. And I still remember when we were coming from the Dubai airport, I saw some Chinese wearing a mask, and we were like literally saying, "Oh, these Chinese are so worried," so worry.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Sunita, from the perch of Delhi, what was your thought as all these Janta curfews and the regular curfew started happening? What was, and I wouldn't ask you the same question I asked them, I'll slightly modify them. What was the perspective teachers had when the first of the lockdown started? Dr. Sunita.
Thank you, Colonel. I have to go back. This is 1 year back. I have to, because we've come a long way. 18th March was the day when we had to begin with the new session. And, just a week prior, it was just on a pace that we might not be able to begin our session. And there were tons and tons of questions, teachers were anxious, and there were a lot of questions coming in from everywhere. But at the end of it, I think we all decided that this is one adversity that is just coming, and we all need to now look at it from a positive perspective. And trust me, we all got together as we always have been working in collaboration, and we have this crew work um, that happens in the classroom. Similarly, the entire faculty, everybody got together and into different groups and started learning from each other. They wanted to begin the session then, we did not want to postpone. So they were anxious, but I think this
Right.
1 year has taught us so much that I don't think good 10 years would have taught us. So I personally believe that teachers' perspective at that point in time, they were worried, but I think they were all ready to handle it.
Okay, right. Worried and ready to handle. Yes. Kanak, Gupta, do you agree with Sunita Swaraj's perception? Was it how you saw it? And what was your understanding of the whole mindset across the board? The students, the parents, the teachers, the wider community. What was the feeling exactly a year back as we entered the unknown?
So I agree with what Sunita ji is saying. There was worry. I'm not going to deny that. But, whenever we do any kind of planning, we always say that be prepared for the worst case scenario. And as an optimist, you hope for the best case scenario. At that time, yes, the worst case scenario that everyone was anticipating was that it will go to summer holidays. And we'll probably be back in action in June or July, whichever region we might be in, and start the session 2 months later. But we went into sort of work from home fairly early, Colonel Sekhar. We went to work from home around this day, which was Holi, I think was on the 9th or 10th. And after that, we announced that everyone's going to work from home. We did not have the kids coming to schools. We had trainings going on at all schools. That started happening remotely. That sort of helped us. But yes, the scenario at that time was that, we need to take a step back, get organized, and see as to how things go. That's what the mindset was a year ago, for sure.
I think Colonel probably has.
Yeah, are you able to hear me now? Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, now we
Yes,
can.
Yeah, are you able to hear me now?
Now
Yes,
and
yes.
then we see.
Yeah. My apologies. Somewhere. Yeah. Sudarshan Chakra. Yeah. On Mahashivratri day, Sudarshan Chakra is not something Lord Shiva would appreciate. Yeah.
No, I felt
Assalamu
you're
alaikum,
going-
Dr. Aishah. Good afternoon.
Walaikum assalam. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah. How are you? And good to hear, good to be in the panel along with you. My question to the others were that what were you thinking a year from today, last year? What was your mindset on the 25th of March when this whole thing started off?
Yeah, first of all, a very good afternoon to all the panelists. It's wonderful to be with this wonderful group of panelists and, to be learning and exchanging views on how we all dealt through this pandemic. I think in UAE, the schools closure began from 8th of March, if I'm not mistaken, way ahead, because India started the closure much later. And thankfully, for us, in 2017, the government of UAE, the ministry here, had already started implementing a transformation to smart classrooms, program for the schools. And this included all private and public sector schools. So in a way, there were some schools which had already taken lead in, adapting to what we are seeing today, online learning, or what you call blended form of learning. And of course, having said that, not that we didn't have any issues or the transition into this was frictionless. I think the first thing that came to my mind at that point of time was, well, here we are now, right into this issue that we have, the COVID-19. And here we have now the opportunity to make sure that the entire smart implementation program is executed in its best form. We were lucky enough, Colonel, in the sense that we had already had professional development sessions for teachers into, how to integrate technology or remote learning, because a lot of things in terms of assessments and assignments for the students was being integrated to the online portal. And as such, not only the schools and the parents, but also ministry had access to that portal and was able to see how the schools are doing. But having said that, there were at that point of time, 1 year back, a large group of schools here in UAE who were struggling because, switching on to now completely technology at that point of time meant for them, additional operational costs, you understand? And because many of them did not have those IT facilities which would allow for, remote learning to happen seamlessly or peacefully. So we did have, our school was lucky. I think my experience was we were quite, yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'll get back to some of the challenges a little later. So now, as the schools reopen in the Indian context sometime the next few days, as we look at it over this, the pre-COVID, post-COVID is something which is of a misnomer. I would think, and this is a great forum with Elets and the World Education Summit, that I would rather look at COVID as a present continuous phase, at least for the next 3 to 4 years. The best of vaccinations are giving you only immunity for about 12 months or something better. So this present continuous phase of COVID, as schools formally reopened with Madhya Pradesh getting all the students back from April the 1st, exams happening, except for preschool, most places, schools being rather active. When the schools reopen, say in a week's time with the next session, what are the 3 significant positives you look at? I repeat, 3 significant positives. I start off with you, Francis Joseph. You have 1 minute to answer this question. Please stick to our timings.
Yeah, so I think many places have opened up, but Bombay hasn't opened up yet, right? So the scenario in Bombay is like children are still away from school for almost a year. And other places like Pune and all have opened up, then again closed up. So when kids, the key positives, what we take from this year, you mean, from the pandemic year? That's what you meant, Kanak?
No, what I'm asking is, once the schools reopen
Okay,
now, the next academic session, whether it's
okay,
some places in the next few days or in April, in most
okay.
places they are starting off in April. What
Yeah.
are the 3 significant positives over the last 1 year which the scholastic community can be proud of?
So I think the value of teachers have improved because they are so tired seeing teachers on a laptop. I think when I've seen the students coming back to schools, they just run to their teachers now. I think that is one emotion which I felt is really picking up. Second is the engagement of parents, and I'm sure we can leverage very strongly on it. Parent involvement, they are actively involved in understanding what is happening in the school, and I think that will really help the way we teach and learning students. That was my second point. And third point is, I think they've understood the value of asking questions and getting answers from the teacher. Because I remember one incident in a government school where we checked with the child. The child said that one thing in online, I never get to ask questions or I never get an answer from the teacher because there's always a camera issue. But in a classroom, I get that kind of value. So she's in a position to ask questions on a physical classroom. I think that value is also improved. Those are my 3 points.
Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, 3 interesting points, especially the story. Yeah, from Bombay, I go closer towards Pune. Yeah, do you agree with Francis Joseph?
Absolutely. Uh, Especially when it comes to leveraging the role of parents. Of course, it also depends on very specifically the class profile of the parents. If you are working, as a domestic labor, if you're not very, your child is a first generation learner. So there's a lot of, variables that will affect in terms of the parent, taking part in the students' learning life. uh, I also think there's one kind of
Ma'am, I've got a point.
awakening
Yeah.
aspect is that, you can call it a levelizer or equalizer. Is this? It's the content and not the container. That you can have a very fancy gadget, or you can just have a smartphone, or you can have a school access to a common television through which you are kind of airing the content. So I think that's something that we really need to think about, is that as long as student has access to a container, and it doesn't matter in terms of its modernity or its cost. But having said that, of course, the disclaimer is it's not the content that makes the learning extremely high, or it's extremely meaningful. And for me, the third great opportunity that kind of woke us up for all is the demand, the possibility, and the urgency of skilling and reskilling and upskilling ourselves.
Yeah.
That we probably will have to, not just, it has been a transition via laptop or the online, but it's not enough. We probably have to reinvent the magic of engaging students and not losing them, because while they are there, we know that they're not there.
Okay.
So it's
Fair.
it's a kind of a double whammy.
It is.
But
It's a
I think
double
that's,
whammy. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
probably the third, for me, most important is also the whole shift paradigm of learning outcome to informed citizenry. because I think we're just not talking about now anymore about passing the exam. We are talking about social commitment, not spreading the disease, taking personal responsibility, and that if one of us violate, it's like the whole class gets punished. So I think that is going to be a huge emphasis in the way we transact our learning sessions.
Oh, yeah. I take the last point. I'll take a rain check on that. As much as I admire what you said, I do have some differences with what you highlighted. It's a good point. Yeah. To Kanak Gupta, my point is I've always said, sometimes with an element of humor, that it's easier to change people in the armed forces than teachers, because they are so stubborn and so rigid. The ladies out here will take their AK-47s to fire at me, but I stand by that statement. So
Why
this,
would we even think that, Colonel? Just
no,
because
no,
we agree
I
with
said,
you.
yeah, okay, good, great. I'm normally not used to this being agreed. Thank you, Lakshmi. So the point I'm trying to highlight is this pandemic, the Black Swan event, has forced teachers to change, mostly for the good. They have done a stellar job of going beyond their call of duty. But my big worry is, once the pressure goes away, once we go back to the regularity of this, would the changes sustain itself? Would the mindset remain the way it is today in terms of growth, or will they become the old stubborn mindset? Kanak Gupta.
So I'm going to use a cliche. You don't throw the baby with the bath water. So, and the pandemic has shown us the importance of upskilling of teachers, of our resources, administrative, and also involving parents in the teaching learning process. My big advice to everyone is that do not throw the baby with the bathwater. Whenever, as Colonel Sekhar said, that once the pressure comes down, maybe we will go back to the old ways. No, we should not. We should take the value adds and integrate it as part of our systems regularly. Don't look at upskilling of teachers because it's a requirement of the board or the government, or because the pandemic has forced us to invest time and energy into upskilling of teachers. It has to be a regular task. We also have to remember that most of our teachers, myself included, we do not come from a background where the Amazon or even StreamYard or Facebook was the norm. And it's taken us also time to learn, understand, adapt all of this. So that we will have to take into consideration. I thought one of the biggest learning points for me as an educator was we've always theoretically talked about flipped classrooms. We've always talked about case study led discussions. We've talked about parental involvement in the teaching learning process. This has happened, and this is happening in a beautiful manner. I really, really hope I have given a mandate to everyone who I work with that we should integrate more technology and in the in-person learning as well. I hope it goes on happening everywhere else as well. The other
Okay,
thing
good.
that I thought has happened, I'll just take 10 more seconds, is collaboration that's happening across schools and educators. Everyone's become more open, and I've been receiving more inputs from the country than I have previously, which is something so, so heartening to see.
Wonderful. In fact, there has been a lot of questions when Rahul Dravid helped out Kevin Peterson to play the Indian spinners. He was considered not to be sufficiently patriotic. So hopefully we are getting out of that nonsense. To the two ladies in the panel, let me ask a different aspect of this question. The question is, are we now only focusing on all the answers so far to the so-called elite schools? India has got something like 320 million students. Sorry, Dr. Aishah, we are focusing on the Indian context in
Absolutely.
general.
I understand. Definitely.
The American population is 330 million. We have well over 250 million students. So, and we have just about 27,000 CBSE schools, 3,000 ICSE schools. You can take the so-called international schools, about 1,000. So are we only focusing on the elite schools? How has it impacted in a place like Delhi, where the state government has focused so much on grassroots education? Dr. Sunita, what is your take from the non-elite? And I use the term elite in a very broad context. All those schools who have relatively better facilities. How has the pandemic impacted on the lesser advantaged, both in terms of economy and also in terms of the caste status?
Um, that's a brilliant question, and I think we can have a long discussion around it. But I would say that definitely the government is working, and 2 days back we had taken a tour of two government schools, and I must in Delhi, and I must say they're doing a wonderful job. That is one aspect. Second is, in my school we have around 25% EWS children, and it was so difficult initially to bring them on in the classroom. With time, I think it took us a lot of, there was a lot of effort that was put in by our student council, and we had a lot of different drives that we picked up, and we somehow, and on a Saturday, Sunday, my teachers were calling them. They just had those small phones, and the teachers took classes on those small phones, and somehow we tried to figure out. And at the end of, I think 2-3 months, the attendance was around 75% of these children. So that was a big achievement. It has definitely impacted these people, and but we've tried to come together. We tried to come together as different stakeholders, parents, students, and everybody. We came together, and in fact, we work in crews. So, like in a crew, even online, we were working in a crew system. In a crew, there are 8 children. Those 8 children took a buddy responsibility of these children. So in those 8 children, one child had one buddy who was from an economically weaker section. So he was supported. So there are all these initiatives, strategies that we took up, and we tried to achieve it. We were like, we could make it. It was not. It was all about how to strategize it. It was difficult, but strategies made it more simpler, more easier for us. So we could do that.
Right. Great. Yes. Dr. Aishah, the same question in a different context for you. How would you look at, now we talk about learning outcomes, which was one of the conversations earlier we had. The Azim Premji University, one of the private universities here in India, has done a study wherein there is significant loss of learning. Loss of learning, there's a lot of debate about it. So a minimum loss is about 30%. The McKinsey survey of the United States talks about a minimum loss of 5 months for maths and science. So this is going to be a reality. What I am saying in the context of this conversation, does it match with what you have seen in your school where you are the director principal? B, how would you tackle it?
Yeah, yes, Colonel. I think the pandemic has affected each and every student globally. And if I go by the UNESCO statistics, 91% of students are facing, the loss of learning. And having said that, the loss of learning or the learning outcomes, I think an estimated gap of, they were saying about 2 to 3 months of, learning in school classroom, contact time with teachers that we are supposed to have, that is expected, in this past 1 year. I feel that, this gap eventually will be covered. Students have this tremendous potential to pick up. Earlier also, if you talk about, such disasters like pandemic, we have been having, natural calamities, and schools have to be closed down because of that. Back home in India itself, if you look at areas like Latur and other places where, even Uttarakhand, where you have these frequent earthquakes and all, and they affect the education system as well. And schools are closed down for a pretty long time. But yet, when schools reopen and teaching and learning begins, students, they have their own ways. Teachers have their own ways of, making up for the loss of learning. That is not the issue. However, the bigger issue is, for me, is, which I experienced here, was pastoral care. We have counselors, we have school social workers, And mental health is an issue. Children definitely have a crisis in terms of their well-being. I'm not worried about academics again, Colonel. Academics, they will pick up eventually, but their mental well-being is something which concerned me, because now suddenly there was remote learning happening, so children had no longer access to that kind of pastoral care which they have at school. It's around the clock. So I think there was where I feel the government, not only in UAE but across the world, I think ministries of education need to look at possibilities how they can support parents. Of course, parental engagement has been there. Once again, when I look at it in my own school, engagement was looking at how they can help children complete their assignments. Still, the concern was about how will you look at the scores, the marks, how are you going to assess our children? But nowhere did I find where parents were asking us questions about how do I support my child's social well-being or mental well-being. So I think ministries have to come into action. I think we need to have, now with this pandemic, taking it as an opportunity. I'm linking it to connecting dots with your earlier question. I think a big opportunity is for us to create opportunities through social media platforms, TV shows, radio stations, how we educate and empower our parents about this important aspect. This is a greater challenge, which I feel, currently that we need to, and we are trying to solve. Thankfully, once schools reopen, I think it's, for me, definitely it's going to be a sigh of relief when I see children coming back and they getting the same pastoral care.
Wonderful. Yeah, ma'am, you have beaten me. You have taken out my next point that I was focusing on, the psychological well-being of the average child. In one of the discussions where Kanak was also part, I had, and many of us had highlighted the amount of verbal as well as physical violence children are facing, which is not very, very well reported. And parents getting frustrated, parents not having jobs. So this question is to Kanak Gupta to be the leader in this conversation. Once schools reopen, there is this thing which is the iceberg below the surface. How would you, as a school leader, do training and development for the teachers, integrate the parents along with it to rebuild what I call PS3? Peace, stability, safety, and security of the student mind, especially below grade 8 and post grade 8, the development of the teenage mind to be normal so that he or she can be the citizen we all aspire them to be. Kanak Gupta.
So I strongly believe that, the social interactions have gone, and that has had an impact on the children in a big manner, also on the adults as well. The most important thing for us to do is accept it, that this problem is there. If there was a value add also of the pandemic, is I'm so happy that we are talking about mental health. I'm so happy we're talking about emotional well-being, because these are issues that no one talked about. We never, I've been made fun of for trying to bring in environment and health as part of our conversations. But I'm so happy that we are talking about it. We are putting it on the forefront. We are talking about involving children for development beyond the course curriculum and content. There are other problems also, Colonel Sekhar, that we are seeing happen. Because of lack of physical activity, children have actually put on a lot of weight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There is another problem. Children have forgotten how to write with pens and pencils.
They have forgotten to say good morning in the lift. The first 3 months, they said at least good morning. Now they say good morning, batana nahi hai, because it's not part of the muscle memory they have. I've seen it physically. Yeah, please continue.
The other problem that I'm foreseeing is that, everyone's fairly comfortable wearing shorts and attending classes where ma'am will not see or sir will not see, the Zoom video is off. Children actually are saying, I don't know how am I going to sit in school, which is a big problem, which I think we should talk about as educators on various platforms, forums. We discuss these things, but I'm very happy that we are talking about it. As regards as to how we'll tackle it, we are speaking to a lot of qualified counselors for training, upskilling our teachers in this aspect as well, because we feel that the more our teachers are educated about it, they will be able to handhold students as well as parents for it. Even now, whenever there are video interactions with parents on for PTMs, we do make an effort to give them a sort of guidelines as to what kind of conversations are we looking at, what kind of discussions should you be having with the children as well as their parents, because this is a bigger problem, I feel, than COVID-19 that we are facing.
Absolutely right. Yeah. I now come down to Dr. Sunita. Yes. Do you agree with Kanak? And what are the tactics and strategies you would implement post-school reopening to do the three following things? Get back the mental stability of the student, get back the quality of the interaction between the parent and the teacher, and get a kind of normality. How would you do that, and what are the options you would suggest, Dr. Sunita?
So, Colonel, during this entire, I think the virtual learning, session, we did not need mental health. I mean, that was the first thing that we addressed. And we've been having regular sessions for our parents, children, teachers, with the experts online. So that is one thing that we had done, we have been doing in the entire year. Second is, we had a mentor program running. So wherein every teacher had some children in her kitty. So that mentor program helped the teacher connect with the child personally. So that is also helped. Now the children are back in our school. 9th to 12th grade children are back, and we do feel that they were absolutely worried and scared the day they came in. But over time, I think the mentors kept talking to these children, and that mentorship program really worked on it. Now, once they are coming back to school, we would be continuing. In fact, back to school is also a plan that is already in for the new session, wherein we all not very sure whether we are going to really be able to run the school in full capacity. So that is also a plan that is coming up. So
I'll come back to that, ma'am. I'll come back to that a little later. The last 15 minutes, you're only going to focus on the next few years. Yeah, we have a couple of, thank you, Dr. Sunita. We have a couple of questions. The first one, I will request Francis Joseph to answer. Lockdown is announced in Nagpur again. Is it necessary to reopen schools? Can't we go digital only? Can't we wait for the vaccination process? Francis Joseph, what is your take?
So I think since examinations are going to be offline, and that's very clear, both from all the boards and also the state government. So I think kids have to be, especially the board kids, have to really get back to school. Even this closing down is a problem because those kids, I mean, we had a meeting today morning on the same context, because we are like 17 lakh kids appearing for the state board examination, and we're going to do it offline. So kids have to be prepared. They need to, there's a lot of demand about practical examination. They're just not ready. The schools have to be open, at least for those board kids, right? In Maharashtra, it's open from 5th grade onwards to 12th grade. I think the problem is, once teachers start getting vaccination, I think this problem of school reopening should be covered up. So I think government should look at that instead of closing down.
So you believe schools to be reopened? Dr. Lakshmi, yeah, this is a question which some of us have debated all over. How to promote 21st century skills in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world? How would you do that as a scholastic leader? Dr. Lakshmi.
Haven't we learned enough in this 1 year of the VUCA world? I mean, adapt, change, embrace change, and prioritize, life over, let's say, lessons, health and safety over attendance. I mean, I think if we haven't learned all the lessons that are important for 21st century, with, pandemic has just kind of woven, literally waved a red flag in front of us. I think we just have to recall, recollect, restate this 1 year, what all we have been pushed to do. I think 21st century skill lessons are done.
Yeah, 21st century will come and go. 22nd century will come. We'll keep talking
Yeah.
about 18th and 23rd century skills.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
think we probably have to rephrase that to say how to promote, skills of survival, skills of learning in a, pandemic situation like this. Whoever
no,
imagined.
we played guilty for VUCA because it's good on the slide which is there. When we say VUCA, the 4G guy tends to come across as something very intellectual. So I would consider that sophisticated bullshit. We are no longer allowed to call somebody a cook. We call the cook, she's now a dining facility manager. So let's get on with it and get going. Yeah. Dr. Aishah, there is a question which has come through. After reopening, will mobiles be allowed in classrooms? Will you allow it in your school? If so, why? If not, why?
I definitely advocate of allowing mobiles in classrooms. I think we have to understand, you are talking about children who have, been exposed to gadgets, whether we like it or not. They do have access to gadgets at home. And barring them from using it in classrooms and schools is not a good idea. However, I think having a good bring your own device policy in place for schools would be supporting and quite helpful in ensuring that children are using it effectively and to support their learning outcomes. So I am an advocate of, yes, bringing in mobile devices with proper policies and procedures in place. I think if we treat our children like, adults, individuals, rather than thinking they are children and they will always end up misusing things, I think that's not going to help us in any way. I think we need to prepare them. We were just talking about 21st century skills, which again, I don't believe is just skills required for 21st century. We require skills we have been, doing it from times immemorial, and we will continue to, do it. So the trick is learn, unlearn, and relearn. I think along with the changing times, the leadership also needs to adapt. Leadership also has to look at how, earlier you had asked Kanak this question, and I'm once again connecting the dots. It is so important that we all become instructional leaders. Why don't leaders timetable themselves? I'm not sure if all of you are doing it. If you're doing it, wonderful. If you are not, then you have to think about your academic coordinators, your supervisors, your vice principals, assistant principals, everybody teaching. I timetable myself every year in different class groups. I mean, unless and until I'm going to model it for my teachers, my colleagues, how on earth do you think I would understand the challenges or the problems they face in the classroom in executing things? And actually, I think it's important that we lead by example. So if I need mobile device, I need more. I mean, look at it. I mean, adults, we need this device so much. We are hooked onto it. We use it so often. I mean, I can't imagine my life without my smartphone. And so similarly, I mean, same applies to kids. They are hooked onto it. Parents are not even aware. I'm aware. They are on every possible social platform. So why don't we make the best of it and support them?
Okay, ma'am, I will take off my moderator's hat and request Elets, whenever you come to India, hold a boxing match between the two of us, because I have significantly different views on that. We leave it aside. I have one more question to tackle before I go to the last 10 minutes. That's a question.
Can I just come in terms of this lockdown and the school reopening?
I'm coming to that in the last 10 minutes. I'm just only focusing on the reopening part. So I just want to cover one more aspect as per the thing, so that, this has been a lively discussion. My apologies. Yeah, this question is very specific. I'm starting off this time with Dr. Sunita. It's a question of the money, the fees, the salaries, etc. That's one of the points. How has it been managed? How difficult has it been? And how do you think it will work? We have seen lakhs of teachers losing their jobs. There has been a brutal resetting of the systems. Large number of teachers have worked very hard on extremely brought down salaries, and there has been significant parental opposition to paying the fees. So what is your take on it? I would request you to keep your answers short. Dr. Sunita.
I'll keep it very short. This has been tremendously difficult for us. With no fee hike in Delhi schools for last past 5 years, it has been a challenge. But somehow I think the connects that we've built with our parents and with our students, we've been able to manage it. And I must tell you, Colonel, not even one single teacher lost a job from us. So we instead of sending off teachers, we decided that we're going to together come back, come and talk about it and decide as a community how we can handle it. So it was not the management or I handling it. It was we together took a decision. What is it that we can do? So it has handled so beautifully by the stakeholders of the school that it made us so comfortable.
Why? You have been आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर. You have been one of the relatively rare success stories. Kanak Gupta. My own take on it is a provocative statement. There has been a significant lack of leadership on this front. Do you agree with me? And what is your take on it? Again, a very short answer.
So, there has been a lack of leadership at many places, yes. But I think, this has been a very, very tough time for schools in general, for management, etc. I say it with a little tongue in cheek that, I'm sick and tired of being called a thief because we've been asking for school fees. But all of us have faced it. The solution we thought was to actually onboard parents into the entire process. And we actually said it that if there is a genuine case, we will be happy to, go even ahead of government guidelines and provide even more relief to that particular parent. But I don't want to get into the entire aspect of that, explaining as to why our fees is there and why should teachers need to be given salaries, etc. Because that has been really, really painful. At times
it's been painful, and at times it has been significantly demoralizing, because I've been part of discussions where parents have said, why should we pay them? The kind of question which we have heard has been extremely demoralizing. Absolutely. And you have to really push back hard on it. Yeah. Thank you, Kanak, on that. Dr. Lakshmi, the same point from the context of what you have faced. The points which have been addressed by Dr. Sunita and Kanak Gupta, and the very, very painful, at times nightmarish scenario of being suggested that you are a thief, plundering our money. So how do you tackle that? And this is a reality which in many schools I am part of, I have faced. Yes. So how have you handled it? And what is the way forward in a situation where private schools are better than Ratan Tata and the Ambanis? We seem to have a lot of money with ourselves.
Yeah. We have heard that. Yeah, I think my story has been pretty much like Sunita's, that we had as a community come together. We did enroll our parents and we opened the doors for parents who really had struggled to come and talk to us. But I want to touch upon one very important aspect, is the very ambivalent, flippy-floppy government stand on supporting private schools. I mean, it seems like everybody, private schools, private English medium, private privileged schools have always been the untouchables. But everybody wants that school. But on one hand there is a fee fixation, the next hand there is shutdown, then there is announcement that you can't of course nobody says that's right, that you can't deny the child the access, you can't force the parents to this, you can't at one point in Maharashtra we had such bizarre recommendations, so you can't even remind. So it's almost like, and you cannot pack anybody off from work, you have to pay salaries because the labor ministry was keeping track of. What did they expect? Some kind of what Adi Yogi out of us?
Akshay Patra and Dr. Mohan Das Pai.
Yeah, but what I'm just thinking is that I think we also need to own that private education is also the government's agenda, and it's not about supporting the vested interests. That we are part of the ecosystem. That we need to make up our mind, and we need to say that education sector, did you notice that that's the only sector that was left out of any kind of
Absolutely.
support from the government
Absolutely.
during this pandemic?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we didn't count as a labor force. I'm just in fact building a campaign that you want us to come back to school after all the frontliners, probably school educators and teachers require vaccination. But we don't seem to figure out everywhere, but everyone tells us what to do and how to do it. So I think we need to kind of get over this facade and say that we are part of the system, and that that systemic solutions must also address us. I think
right.
that's
Yeah.
my take.
Yeah, that is, it's very easy for the vote seeking politician or the leader to say that the parents have to be protected
Yeah,
in
but
more ways
thankfully,
than
Colonel, thankfully, the judiciary has been, I think, taking a fairly
balanced
balanced
view.
view and viewing the teachers and valuing teachers. Suddenly, this whole thing of Guru Brahma, Guru Devo, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly, like Kanak said, we are the thieves, and why do teachers need to be paid salaries? वैसे भी आके क्या करते हैं 2 घंटा? It was all very demoralizing, very disrespectful. Just imagine coming from your living room. At one point, I addressed my parents and I said, "What we are not divorcing. ये divorce conversation में होता है,
Yeah,
that you are not
True.
doing sports and lab, तो उसका fees cut कर दो. You are
True.
taking the refrigerator, उसके लिए आप पैसा रखो." I said, we are not divorcing. We are going to come back. We need each other. Let's understand that we have a very long-standing
Absolutely.
common interest in something called a child. And hence, let's
True.
not get the third party between us. Let's write this together. That has been my message to my parents.
excellent, excellent. I'm glad that the way I know Lakshmi, she has said it in the most clear fashion, as always, as she says, well spoken. In fact, this has been one of the real pains of this entire thing. The government school teachers got their money. They had very little interest in reopening the schools because it was a very comfortable sinecure for them, and they can be sent for COVID collections, COVID injections, and everything else. So I think in many ways we have also not put
Colonel,
up the kind of united front
Colonel,
we should have.
I'm also
I'll
not saying, Colonel, just one sentence to just put the perspective. This is not even about government and private. It's about
True.
education sector,
Education.
and
No, no,
nobody owns
no,
it,
no. I'm going a step ahead. I'm simply saying I have a standard line that a nation which does not know how to respect its soldiers and teachers will have a significant
Absolutely.
challenge. So,
Yeah.
as a soldier, I have seen that 15th August, 2nd October, 26th January, Bharat Mata
January.
Ki Jai. We have it great, we shout. And after that, and this is a real story, I sent close to 400 of my students to National Defense Academy. I met them when they came back at the night. 350 of them said they'll join the armed forces after coming back. 3 days later, the parents had worked on them. I did not even see 5 hands raised. When I asked them why,
Wow.
our parents have dissuaded us. So we are not going into that. So I'm just only putting that perspective. Now we
True.
have the last round of questions, and I'll start off with Dr. Aishah. We'll take 5 minutes extra, the host, so that it comes through the right manner. The new session, the present continuous pandemic phase. How do you see schools' scholastic systems developing? We do not know what jobs are going to come 10 years from today. Blended learning, the way face-to-face, synchronous, asynchronous integration, and also a significant point, 25% of all Indian students are overweight, and a significant percentage of them are obese too. All this comes up, plus the new education policy. So in about a couple of minutes, summarize it. How do you see the next year, more broadly, the next 5 years in the education scholastic system as far as your vision goes? Dr. Aishah.
Yeah, I think number one would be apart from what schools are doing, I think the governments across, including UAE, need to revisit how they are going to look at the education budget. This is an opportunity for them to revisit their budgets and to support private and public sector schools. So building on that. Number two, I think it's an opportunity, wonderful opportunity now, in this continuous pandemic era. We evolve and we delve into further how we can further evolve our methodology, teaching methodology, and how we can look at more flexible ways of reaching the learning outcomes for students. Two, now I think we also need to revisit, I think this 1 year has taught us that teachers are not just merely people who are transferring knowledge to children, imparting knowledge. I think we need to once again, this ongoing continuous period is allowing us to look at how teachers are not just people who are transferring information or knowledge, but how they are co-creators in this process of you're transferring knowledge to students. And thirdly, I would say, is looking at homeschooling, revisiting. I think there was a time when parents homeschooling was an alien concept, not only in Middle East, even in India. I mean, parents are like, homeschooling what, as opposed to what's happening in Western countries. So I think homeschooling, definitely there has to be a blend of homeschooling, school schooling, and all these things. And we need to see how best we can support parents to be able to efficiently support their children in their homeschooling in terms of how they are learning and achieving their learning outcomes. Yes,
Great.
these three things.
Great, Dr. Aishah, wonderfully said. The teacher as a co-parent, the parent as a co-teacher. Francis Joseph, what are your thoughts? How will it pan out over the next 12 months, 36 months, and 16 months? We have lost him? Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Sunita, you can take it on.
I think this is a difficult answer but as I see that we all are rushing towards the school. Everybody is wanting to open it up, like we're all tired of virtual learning. Parents are tired, teachers are tired, everybody's tired. We all are now, I don't know what's going to happen from 1st of April, suddenly that everything is going to be normal. That's what I've been listening from people, that 1st April we are opening the school, everybody there, and it's all fine. I think that's a very, my opinion, it's a very, very, it's going to cause a lot of difficulty. If we are not moving, if we are not strategizing it, if you're not slowly moving there, it is going to be very, very difficult. So it has to be strategized, it has to be planned well, so that we all are absolutely comfortable in the coming years. Otherwise, I think this will keep reoccurring with the current vaccination, as you rightly said, 12 months or maybe 6 months or whatever. We do not know what's going to happen, but then we can't just rush to the school. So slowly and steadily strategizing it and moving forward with all the, keeping everything in mind and being very cautious. That is how we'll be able to handle this scenario. And one last thing, I think with this current virtual learning happening, I've been listening from people, this shall also pass. But sab log wait kar rahe, everybody's waiting for that normal to come back. So that's going to never come back. I think there'll be, people have been saying new normal, but I say that there'll be, a very, very changed normal that's going to be here, and we will have to embrace it together.
Okay. Great. Yeah. The new abnormal, as it called it. Kanak, Gupta, your take for the next, you are the Education Minister of India. How would you get your 320 million students, catch up on what they have lost last year? And what are the 3 things you would do to get our systems and processes do it right for an India which has to become an economic superpower in the next 15 years?
So, Colonel Sekhar, you used a cricket analogy, and I've been itching to use a cricket analogy myself. So, I'm a big fan of all forms of cricket, and I think that T20 has its value add. but test matches show, the mettle of a cricketer,
Real.
where preparation is required, where you need skills, and you also need a lot of fitness aspects to come into it, and you need sustainability going forward. So I believe that, while there is a lot of value add with technology, there is a lot of value add with new processes that, everyone uses as jargon. I saw that there was a question on VUCA. A lot of all of that, but basics have to be done right. If I had to do something, I would keep it simple. I would go back to the basics. I would try ensure that all my pillars of the school, be it my teachers, my parents, my administrators, everyone is sort of equipped for fighting this challenge, not just for now, but for future. If I have to become an economic superpower, I need to equip all my resources in that direction. Play a test match, play a test series, and not just a one-off T20 match.
Right, great. I cannot let you go off with the cricket analogy by not saying something. Sunil Gavaskar played his first test match 50 years back. He won our first series then. 50 years later, we are going to play the World Test Championship final. So the gestation period for a school to deliver in terms of quality citizenship is somewhat similar. Francis Joseph, we lost you in between. How would you look at it? What are your 3 key recommendations for having a smooth, present, continuous, and post-COVID scholastic education? Francis Joseph.
So I think it's very important that we have understood. We always felt the pandemic will get over in 2 weeks, and it just stretched for a year and still not over. We don't know how long it will still go, right? So I think whatever we have learned from the pandemic in terms of building different pillars of how education can happen, the teaching and learning can happen, we should actually start strengthening those. Because even if you get a vaccination tomorrow, don't know, right? We are so vulnerable to pandemic now. We should be ready to switch immediately. Also, the government has to really rethink, because even the governments are learning on how to handle this particular scenario. And every time they think that this might happen, and that doesn't happen, right? And it goes on and on and on. So I think, and every state government is thinking on their own. So I think there's a lot of learning for policymakers also to start consultation, right, and to see what is going to impact them, what is not going to impact them, and actually start working together as one policy. We are totally confused right now,
Okay. Dr. Lakshmi Kumar, you wanted to say something also in this panel discussion. The formidable Dr. Lakshmi has the last word. Yes, over to you.
Okay. I think one of the things that pandemic has shown us is the value of distance learning. I think if we can keep a page out of that, especially for students, that we can reimagine the school days quite differently. Or it could even be 2 days, 3 days, 4 days school and 2 days online, especially, of course, for the older students. Younger students need to come, be more physical and, more social. And so we kind of can reimagine a school day structure and how we organize ourselves. The second important reimagining that we need to do is around the exams. I mean, just now, we can see the whole high stake exams is so unfair, especially because the access to learning this year has been unequal and, it's been not very great for all over the world or all over the country. But they're all going to sit down and write the same paper. So I think we need to definitely relook at the high stakes exams. I mean, NEP is coming, but how we, including educators, will quickly reinvent and put that damn exam back, and we will write papers on how to get high scores. So we are letting down our children. And this also means that within the school systems, we need to look at how do we do the assessments. Maybe a lot of schools have invested in technology that will track your iris movement if you're cheating. We probably have to invest in our children on how to build on integrity and do the right thing when nobody watches.
Absolutely.
Which means for me, the last and the most important thing is that our students will have to be trained and retrained, especially from an Indian cultural context of taking ownership, responsibility, integrity when nobody is watching. It's okay if I'm only a 49%er. I don't have to copy and get that 94 out. So we need to reorient our moral compass to our students and empower them.
True.
Great. It's been a fascinating discussion in terms of what we have discussed. Thank you to Francis Joseph, Dr. Sunita Swaraj, Dr. Aishah from Dubai, Dr. Lakshmi, and Kanak Gupta. It's been very interesting, and thank you for connecting the dots amongst each other. I would say that state governments in India are beginning to understand that good schooling is a vote winner. And I would certainly believe that private schools, with the decreasing population in terms of students in Tamil Nadu, you have lesser number of students in grade 1 than in grade 9. We are at the cusp of a very different kind of revolution. As Ramachandra Guha said, we have a democratic, social, cultural, 5 revolutions happening together. So we get our moral and ethical compass right for our students, we better get it right, because the future of India or any nation depends on it. Thank you very much. God bless you. And let's hope that all our optimism is translated into real action. Back to the host. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you
so
for
much.
a wonderful moderation, Colonel. And I love it that we disagree on many of our points.
Absolutely.
Thank you, all the speakers. The session was very well moderated and very well delivered by the panelists. Thank you once again. Moving on with the
Thank you.
speaker certificate, we'll go with Lieutenant Colonel A. Sekhar, Education Director, RMPS International School, Ankleshwar. Thank you, sir. Dr. Lakshmi Kumar, Director, the Orchid School, Pune. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sunita Swaraj, Principal, the Heritage School, Vasantkunj, Delhi. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kanak Gupta, Director, Seth, Jaipuria
Well
School. Thank you, sir. Dr. Aishah Siddiqua, Director and Principal, Dubai National School, Dubai, UAE. Thank you, ma'am. And Francis
you.
Joseph,
Thank
CEO,
you.
Crimson Education. Thank you, sir.
Well done.
Well done. Well done.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon somewhere.
See you soon. Yes.
Yeah,
Colonel,
without-
I would
without-
request you.
without-
Colonel, I would
yes.
request you to create a WhatsApp group. I would love to continue this interaction, or probably maybe we could be on LinkedIn together, all of us, a group
We
there,
would-
where we could, continue to interchange and exchange our viewpoints and ideas. It's been a fantastic panel. Thank you so much.
I'll be there
Thank you.
without the boxing gloves and the AK-47. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Lovely meeting
Thank you.
you,
Bye.
Kanak, after
Bye-bye.
a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. It was great fun discussing it, because now we are good friends. There's so many things which we have learned from each other. Cheers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Stay safe.
Aman, can we move on with the AV, please?
भारत एक युवा देश है। विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है, और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूँ, IT plus IT is equal to IT. Information technology plus Indian talent is equal to India tomorrow.